Thank you, everyone, for being here in classroom or remotely present. So I will present I present to you this experimental relationships, union power in societal networks in Quebec. Is by me, Anthony Masi, at the McGill Desautels Faculty of Management. Now, if you have something better to do, go back on Facebook or whatever. I'm speaking about the two articles that are now online. First, the one in Work, Employment and Society, and the second one in Industrial Relations Journal. So if you have something better to do, just read the papers. And basically, you have the title, From a Movement Societal Relationship to a Broad-Based Movement, Union Power in Societal Networks in Quebec, Canada. In the recent interest of everyone, support for social movement unionism among union officials in Quebec. As you can say, these two articles are very complementary. So what's the reference? So I started about debating social movement unionism as a general framework and how some unions try to focus and re-empower themselves, looking at the societal power embedded in societal relationships. So how unions that develop relationship with society to gain power. I'm not to look at the power over, meaning the power in action, but I look at the potential aspect of the power. So meaning I'm going to the relationship and I try to identify some latent potential basic power resources, the so-called power to embedded in the networks. I mobilize network analysis that's been rarely mobilized to study union renewal and more specifically social movement unionism. And I do in two different ways. The egocentric analysis, so I put one actor in the middle of the network and I see how this actor is relating to the rest of the actors. Namely, I put the unions in the middle and see how they develop in different relationship with the collective and individual societal actors. I'm trying to understand the variety of power resources that are embedded in those relationships and to what extent this kind of different relationship can be mobilized. Now, that being said, I go beyond the one-to-one relationship, union to actor, but I go also to analyze the systemic aspect of the network to try to see to what extent unions are able to harness relationship into a powerful network. So it's an explorative study in Quebec to produce, my goal is to produce a typology for union societal relationship. And my approach is a qualitative network analysis to identify specific resources embedded in different union societal relationship and to really pinpoint, identify the ability of union to weave these different relations into a dense network. We performed 30 semi-structured interviews with union executives who have been involved in some kind of relationship with the society. And we did subsequently 3 confirmatory focus groups, one with academics who are experts on union renewal in Quebec, one with the civil society organization who have been contacted and involved, engaged with unions, and then another one with unions to consolidate the emerging findings. So now I'm not going to pass through all the typology that is pretty complex and even a little bit small, graphically speaking, but you can see everything on the article. So we found 5 different typologies of relationship between unions and the society. The first one is the instrumental. Basically, there is a typical situation in which one organization and union, they share common goals. For example, the group of parents in a daycare and the union representing the workers of the daycare, and sometimes they have merging interests and they collaborate. There is what are the power resources? In this case, is community engagement and network expansion, though generally it's a very one-shot relationship. The second one has been identified with the civil society organizations. Those are typical overlaps between union, ideal goals, and some civil society organization. So power in terms of social justice and community engagement, and the shared pool between unions and civil society organization in terms of activists. Identity-based relationship, those are especially developed by people within the unions who have a specific identity, gender identity, ethnic identity, etc., who try to link to the union other people from the same kind of identity to participate in the union activities. What has been deemed more interesting also by the referees are the other two we found that are the so-called satellite network. Satellite relationship is one step removed from the union. Those are very strong networks and generally are family and friends. Some unions, they tried a lot to do, let's do a barbecue with all the family. Let's do a barbecue with all the friends of the neighbors. Those are very high in trust relationships. So people, they really trust each other and there are strong bonds that can be exploited. Interesting, there are also the ones we call the fishing line. So unions going into festivals, unions going with a mobile bus canteen somewhere just to try to meet people. They put up a stand with coffee, giving out coffee in a square, in a small village, and just chit chat with people. There is a limited expansion of military base, but especially union gains in the knowledge of the everyday injustices lived by common people. What we find in terms of systemic view that there is a discontinuity in time, the fragmentation of the network, and a low union harnessing commitment. So what we see in Quebec, there is a union societal power that there is the potential to marshal many resources, but that they lack of what Holgate calls the deep organizing from the union. There is not a strategy, a union strategy, to really build on these resources, mobilize them consistently throughout time. So why unions are kind of disengaged in harnessing this societal network? This we go in my second publication, where we search for the micro foundation of social movement unionism. When we spoke about social movement unionism, all the literature is outwardly directly what the union as an institution did towards another organization. I look instead what within unions people think and how they conceive and how to what extent they support social movement unionism. So what we did, 30 interviews with union officials, and they asked them about trade union, what are the trade union priorities beyond the bread and butter interests of the members? What are the strategies that and the experiences they had in terms of mobilizing people beyond their members and to have an impact on workers beyond their members? And interesting enough, we use a very effective vignette. So we told a small story of Maria, a migrant worker who was working with other 4 colleagues. All of the 4, it's a non-unionized workplace. All the 4 are against unions. Maria had the worst conditions, working condition ever. And Maria passed by the office of the union, say, oh, what can you do for me? I had this issue. So first, it's a mixed method approach. So first, we try to see and to have an understanding on how the actors of unions, so within unions, possible actors, social movement unions, they conceive social movement unions. So we don't take an idea there in the literature and we apply, we try to do the reverse, to go bottom up and try to understand. So union executives in Quebec, they perceive social movement unionism in 5 ways. First, a general idea of broadening union priorities beyond members. Second, the set of relationship with the civil society organizations. Third, the political action, so lobbying the political, the government, etc., to protect and promote the rights for non-unionized workers. Interesting enough, they perceive also as the possibility of protecting all workers from dismissal and providing legal services to precariously non-unionized employees. So those are the different dimensions of the social movement unionism as conceived by union executives. Now, to what extent and why those dimensions are supported by union officials? We did a snowball sampling. We don't pretend to be representative, though if you look all the details, there is so much varieties in terms of type of union, age of the respondent, the experience within the unions. Okay, 2 minutes? No, 5. Okay, perfect. Basically, we have 366 completing questionnaires, and our factors to explain the different support are based on the internal experience within unions in terms of what kind of role you had, what you did, etc., and the external experience in civil society organizations and the type of civil society organizations involved. That is a descriptive, and you can easily see on the left, the red square, that there is a lot of support for the idea to defend all the workers, to do alliances with civil society organizations, to do political action. Conversely, there is a much, much lower support for more pragmatical aspects. Now, let's see, we had a few number of union members just as a benchmark. If you are a union official, you are more inclined to support the members this kind of ideal aspect of social movement unionism. Let's defend everyone. Let's do alliances with civil society organization. Let's lobby the government to protect the rest. But you are not more inclined to take effective steps to promote the rights of unrepresented oppressed workers. What makes the difference is if you, as a member of a union official, had experience in civil society organization. This increases the possibility that you also support pragmatical aspects. They're not all, if then the model is much more developed, you can look online all the details, but they're not all the civil society organizations that they have the same power in explaining this difference. Mostly are the advocacy civil society organization, not the instrumental of expressive. Expressive is a group of theater, let's have theater together. Instrumental is something that is for the own benefits of the people participating in association. Advocacy is for the benefits of other people, not for the people who are participating. Overall, they are ideally inclined, but pragmatically reluctant to embrace social movement unionism. So we see across the two papers I presented, there is a tension toward the society in Quebec. Some experiments, even interesting, some of them, but not a deep organizing strategy. Union officials are ideally inclined to do a union for all, but they are reluctant to take pragmatic steps to act for them, meaning the non-members, and not just for us, meaning the members and people of the union. Union official support for social movement in unionism does not conduct it to a coherent societal strategies, and many resources of power too, of potential that we see out in the society, they remain untapped or under-mobilized. And so the power over toward the employer possibly is undercut. I guess I still have 1 minute, so thank you. And if you have any question, just check the link to the first of the publication, and you can contact me or Tony as you want.